I'm Doug Marks with Metal Method Video Guitar Lessons. I have what I think is a really interesting lesson today. It's not only a guitar lesson, but it's a lesson about how to attain any goal. It will be specifically about how to attain your guitar goals, but it actually applies to so much more than that. Now, I've been fortunate over the last 40 years or so to find out that my life's work is to help people become better guitar players. Now, was this something that I set out as a goal and that I wanted to work toward and make sure that it happened and plan it? No, no. I stumbled into it. It's very much like John Lennon said, and it's attributed to John Lennon, but he probably didn't come up with it. Life happens while you're making other plans. My plan was to be a rock star. So did I ever achieve that? No. I fell somewhat short, but at the same time, like many things in life, I have great excuses. I believe I could have done it. It was proven to me that I was on the edge, and part of our visions, our goals, what we want to attain has to do with sacrifice. When it came down to it, I wasn't willing to sacrifice my comfortable life for what I had found would be a lifestyle that might have meant that I wouldn't be here to talk to you today. How's that? Anyway, this whole video that I'm doing right now is going to be a little bit different than anything that I've ever done, because it probably comes more from the heart than some of the videos that I do that are scripted, well put together, concise, unambiguous. I'm very careful with my guitar lessons. This is something different than that. I feel that I could make a huge difference for a very few people that are watching this. And how do I know a very few people? Here's why. About 50% of the people that started watching this video already are gone. They decided, for whatever reason, they don't like the way I look, they don't like how old I am, they don't like the way I talk, or for whatever reason didn't find it interesting enough to continue. Now, how do I know this? Well, YouTube gives me way too many statistics, and I'll tell you exactly what my statistics look like on average. A really good video that ends up having 40,000 views might, after 30 seconds, have only 40% of the people watching the video leave. A not so good one will have about 50% drop off, but it doesn't matter. By the time you look at the statistics, depending on how long the video is, and you get near the end, it's like 30%. And, you know, it hurts my feelings a little bit, especially realizing that the 30%, some of them have just left the room to fix themselves a sandwich. Others are actually scrolling on their phone and forgot that I'm talking to them right now, okay? So anyway, I am not planning on this being the greatest video for keeping your attention. It's probably going to be long and meandering, but I'm telling you right now, for those very, very few people that reach the end and have actually been paying attention to what I'm saying over the course of this video, there will be a few that I believe that it will be life-changing in a way that I can't think of any lesson that I've ever done has been life-changing. The subject of this lesson or talk, whatever you want to consider it, is dreaming. I had a dream last night. And if I actually went through everything that happened in the dream, it would be so boring that I definitely wouldn't even have 30% making it to the end of my video, maybe 3. But anyway, I had this dream, and as you know, dreams are as real as what we're experiencing now. We don't say in the middle of our dream very often, hey, this is a dream, forget it. No, it's real. And the reality of this dream was I was stranded without my phone, without my wallet. Some of my stuff had been stolen from me. I was with friends, now they had disappeared. I was alone and trying to figure out what to do. So it was not a good dream. I guess we could technically call it a nightmare because it was something that seemed real at the time, but I was very glad when I woke up from this dream. Now, when I woke up, and part of the waking up process was, it started to seem too much like a dream. This stuff can't be real. I can't be having this much bad luck. Everywhere I turn, nobody knows how to give me directions. They can't tell me where I am, or I request information on where I'm going. They give me directions that don't work. You know, it's crazy. But eventually it's like, okay, this seems too much like a dream because I've been having dreams like this before, and you know, I'm starting to figure it out. And as I'm figuring it out, I'm waking up. As I'm waking up and lying in bed, I started thinking really, really deeply about dreams. Not only at night, but the dreams we have during the day. And the truth of the matter is, there's not much difference. I've had a very interesting, full life, and it's all been about me dreaming things and making them come true. Recently, I've thought of the description of my life as making it up as I go. And it started when I was, I guess probably my entire life there has been a bit of this daydreaming that turns into real dreams and plans, and suddenly I'm on a mission to attain something. Don't always attain it, but I through the course of my life have learned what it takes to attain dreams, and that's what I want to talk about today. Now, I'm a guitar instructor, and as I mentioned earlier, this discussion on dreams and attaining our dreams and visualization and working toward our goals and so on and so forth, it applies to all aspects of my life, but I'm not going to go there. There are so many things that I have manifested out of nothing, figured out a way to get things that seemed impossible, but developed a plan, stuck to the plan, and it didn't take too much of a sacrifice to attain my goals. But what I want to talk about today, because my audience is guitar players, people that want to learn to play guitar better. That's why you're checking out my YouTube channel, I assume, and why many of you have been with me since the 80s. If you haven't read the comments from my videos, check them out and you'll see a lot of these people, I help them realize their dreams. And that's what I'm here to help you with today, and to show you how you can manifest whatever you desire with your guitar playing, with some exceptions. You may not have the technical ability. You may have bricklayer's hands instead of a surgeon's hands. You might not have the coordination that it takes to, like, I'm really good at typing extremely fast. So there are different skills or things that we were born with that can be considered talent. But from my experience, most of becoming a better guitarist, a better musician, composer, has a lot less to do with God-given talent and more to do with how hard we're willing to work toward our goals, And are the goals we're working toward anything at all that comes close to something that we can attain? Because sometimes we dream about something. Okay, one of my first dreams, I loved the Beatles when I was a kid, and I came of age right when the Beatles hit. So I looked at that and everything going on with what I imagined the Beatles to be, and yeah, I wanted to be in the next Beatles. Well, as it turns out, all these years later, we realized there was never a next Beatles. There was a Beatles, and then there were musical groups, fantastic musical groups, of course, that followed. But what was then was never repeated. So my first real dream that I can remember, musical, was something that was unattainable. And it didn't take me very long to realize this because, well, at one point I was working in a grocery store and I didn't know how to play guitar very well. And I was about, I don't know, 17 years old, and I'm looking around and it's like, you know, I'm probably not going to be in the next Beatles. And by this time I'd already fallen in love with everything about Jimi Hendrix and his music. And so, hey, this is a potential goal. Maybe I'll be, if not the next Hendrix, I will be some guitar hero. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Well, once again, I was working at a grocery store and barely knew how to play guitar and hadn't practiced much guitar in 3 years. So that probably wasn't attainable. So that's one of the first lessons about dreaming and attaining your dreams, is it's got to be a reasonable goal. And not only that, and here's the most important thing, and I don't believe that I've ever adequately described this, and that is, it's got to be a goal that you have reason to believe that you can attain. I mean, that is so important. Then you can make the plan. You can work toward the dream because you believe intensely that it's something that you're capable of attaining. So that's what you're going to see when I go through my various levels of moving up the guitar chain, you know, playing for friends, bars, playing in Hollywood, playing with rock stars, so on and so forth. At every level, I had to be able to believe that my dream was attainable. And that doesn't mean that whatever dream you attain, like, okay, my first dream was, that was attainable. I just wanted to play in a local band. Now, was my dream, I want to be the best guitarist in my hometown? No. I never had that dream because I saw the other guitarists in my hometown. They were more experienced, they were better, and I didn't know what talent was then, and I don't know that I still do, but I'd convinced myself that they were more talented than I was. So my first dream was very simple. I wanted to be in a band, I wanted to perform in nightclubs, and, you know, kind of a childish dream, but I wanted girls that wouldn't even look at me to be dancing in front of me and give me one of those looks like, that's Doug Marks there, you know. So that was my first very simple dream, and I attained that, and I attained it for the reasons that I just explained. I believed that I could. I believed that I could practice enough to play rhythm guitar in a band, and I found a band to join. We played a few little gigs, and I realized I was on the right path, and so it was easy for me to make the goal of playing in nightclubs because I saw that I was on the way, and I did that. My main goal at the time, probably more than being a great guitarist in my hometown that had a reputation for being better than anybody else, was I wanted to get the hell out of Dodge. I knew that I was not going to attain anything beyond, you know, local bar status without leaving my hometown. And I did that when I was 21, 22, somewhere in that area. And to get out of town, I joined a band that I wasn't really crazy about the music, and I didn't think the band had a great deal of potential for what I wanted to do, be a rock star. But the band had gigs lined up out of town. So I quit my job at the grocery store, which I had maintained part of the time when I was playing in my local band. Part of the time I had to make a decision. Doug, if you're going to stay here at Penny Fair, you're going to have to cut your hair. So I didn't cut my hair. And it was understood that, okay, I was on to other things. And my other things was time to get out of Dodge. I left town with this band, and it didn't last very long, but it lasted long enough for me and my then wife, Londa, to end up all by ourselves in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and once again, I want to play in a band that at this point is a band that travels around and plays rock music and plays songs I like in front of an audience and get that type of experience. And I joined a band with some people that had different goals. I had nothing. I mean, literally nothing, no material possessions. I had a yellow Volkswagen that I rode around the country in that eventually had 200,000 miles on it, a 1972 VW. And a few other things, but I didn't have anything that couldn't actually fit in my car. So it was a very simple life that I was leading, but the people that were in the band that I joined, they had real lives. One was a teacher, one was a Craig, Keebler cookie salesman, and we were all young. And the jobs that they had, I realized were entry-level jobs, and that one day all of these guys, they had what it took to be successful with their lives. So I knew that they were going to move far beyond what was happening there, but that was their goal. My goal was to be I'll have to do it again, rock star. So I was fortunate to be in this band, and they had played together before. They, like me, had moved to Atlanta. They came from Flint, Michigan. And over the course of a couple of years, one by one, left the band because it was a fun thing to do one summer, but it wasn't what they wanted to do with their life. And I understood that. I understand that now. This was not where they were headed. They weren't crazy like me, and they had a lot to lose. They were all married. They had real homes. I lived in a little crappy apartment with my then wife, Londa. And I didn't have much of a life. I was not working with a net, so to speak. You know, I was on the high wire, but I didn't have anything to catch me if I would fall. Especially considering I knew that if I didn't have some kind of success playing in a touring band, that I'd have to get a real job. And thank God, since I left Penny Fair in 1972, nobody's ever signed my paycheck. I've just absolutely dreamed my future and made it work come hell or high water, because I never wanted to go back to that. And I was always willing to not make very much money. I've never made much money in my life. The first couple of years that I did Metal Method, it was so popular and I had no competition. Yeah, I did all right for a year or two. But for the most part, I've made a living. I'm somewhat of a frugal person, and I've made things work, but I don't need luxurious vacations and a boat or any of the trappings. I have a nice house, but I got in the market at the right time. So I haven't needed a whole lot. But anyway, back to that band that we were doing the touring circuit. We spent a lot of time in Florida, and I basically learned how to become comfortable in front of an audience, and I became a much, much better guitar player just because I was playing 4 or 5 hours a night, 5 or 6 days a week. Okay, so after that, well, it got to the point after a couple of years, I just told the band, you know, I want to sit down and really put together something that has a chance of making it professionally. But these guys didn't have anything to fall back on, and I had Londa that was willing to work while I would sit around practicing guitar and, you know, dream my dreams. And they didn't have that. It was either play endlessly these little gigs that we were playing, or they too would have to go back and get the jobs that they didn't want to play. And hey, what we were doing was great. It may have been the time of my life. I look back on it so fondly because it was such a blast most of the time. We didn't make any money, but we didn't pay for our drinks either. And it was fun playing in front of the audiences and seeing the attractive ladies out there, shall we say. Anyway, but after a couple of years, I decided this is not going to go anywhere. So I told them, hey, I want to go back to Atlanta, sit down and really put this together and be professional. Well, they couldn't do it. So next move was to go to Denver, and that's where I started giving private guitar lessons in lieu of getting a real job and not playing in a band. And Londa held a job making enough money for us both to survive, and I was giving guitar lessons for, I think, maybe $5 a lesson, so I wasn't making anything at all. But eventually we made it out to California, and I'm not going to go into my story of how Metal Method came to be, but basically, like most things in life, I was forced into figuring some way to make a better living than what I'd made in the past. And I had learned a lot of experience on the road, playing in bands, with my students in Denver, and I decided to put together my Metal Method course. So I don't want to go much further than that. I've told the story many times. You could look it up on the internet, and I'll probably tell it many times in the future. It's an interesting story, but it is one of those things, like the rest of the stuff that I'm talking about. I visualized it. My visualization for Metal Method was my student told me how good I was as an instructor, and why didn't I do what they had seen a couple of different people were doing in fan magazines, guitar magazines, and such. So they convinced me. Here is them giving me the belief that I just didn't necessarily have myself, but now I had a reason to believe that I succeed. They told me that I could. It made sense, so I was able to put this dream together of guitar lessons, selling them in magazines, partly because they helped me to visualize it. And then the next thing with that was I had to put magazine ads out 2 months before before they hit the stands. So here I am. I am telling more about Metal Method than I intended to. Anyway, so basically I had these ads out there and I didn't have guitar lessons. I hadn't even started it yet, but man, did I have the motivation. And that's another thing that really helps a lot. When you make a plan and you don't give yourself an escape from that plan and you have to attain it, it helps you to go a long ways toward attaining your goal. Okay. At this point, I'm in California. As most of the rest of my life, had absolutely no material possessions to speak of. Didn't have anything to fall back on, but I started thinking of my guitar lesson plan as a way that I could finance my band. I made so much money the first couple of years with Metal Method that I was able to put together $80,000. And you know, when you're sitting on $80,000 that you're willing to invest in a rock band, you can believe in that goal. So I spent my money and we found musicians and put the thing together. And my vision was for this entity to finally be my rock star dream. And without going into that story at length, essentially what happened was when push came to shove, as I mentioned earlier, I was not willing to make the sacrifice. And that's another big, important part of this. And that is when you have a vision, have a dream, even before you make the plan, you've got to be willing to make the sacrifice that you're going to have to make to attain that. What happened was, at this point in my life, I had Metal Method, which was successful when I was working with my band Hawk, and I was not willing to put up with as much stuff. And I had invested a lot of money in this band, and essentially what happened was we played Hollywood, sold out the Roxy. There was an agent that had worked with a professional band, the Knack, previously, that was signed to Atlantic Records. Anyway, the reason that I believe that I could have made it with that band, this guy was legitimate. We were rehearsing one day, and this is when they had payphones. So I'm on a payphone at our rehearsal space, and he put me on the phone with Amit Erdogan. I guess he was the president or CEO, anyway, the head man at Atlantic Records. And Amit was telling me how this guy that wanted to represent our band and, you know, be our, not manager as much as our production company, but that he was legitimate and I should listen to him. And it was pretty obvious to me, and I heard later, there's all kinds of people that wanted to sign us. But my position was, I had spent $80,000 on the band, and it was a setup where I wasn't getting any more back from this deal than anybody else in the band. And this was supposed to be my investment. Aside from musically, you know, as a business person, I invested in this. And I invested heavily in it, and I expected to be reimbursed. There was none of that. And then things got a little bit crazy with the band. And since I was working with a net, so to speak, and my net was Metal Method that provided a comfortable income, and I pretty much neglected it while I was in the band, so it was on a downward spiral. I decided to go back to my business, where I still am, and not pursue my rock and roll dreams any longer, unless someone came up to me at some point in time and said, "Doug, you must be a rock star. Here you go." Okay, I'll take that. Anybody out there? I'm ready. I'm all ready. Anyway, I hope that these stories that I've told you has given you a little bit of an inspiration and insight into how you can make things happen. I'm teaching a lot of students on Zoom right now. And I know from my experience, people that I've played with, the things that I've done, and that I do know how to dream and make dreams happen, that the people that are taking my Zoom lessons right now, I can help them to attain anything they want to do, as long as they have the belief that they're able to attain it. And there's got to be goals. And the dream that they may want to attain may be very simple, just amuse my friends or entertain my friends at parties. or play in a local band, or be the best guitarist in town, or beyond. I've experienced it all. So a lot of this is a message to my Zoom students that I can help you do whatever you want to do. And it's much more than just becoming a better guitar player. I can help you reach your dreams. And it all starts with goals. And in order to reach your goals, you must have a plan. Now, all of this is standard. I would maybe even put the plan as number 4 instead of number 2. But you've got to have a plan for achieving your goal. But there's nothing more important in achieving a goal is believing it's possible to achieve the goal. And you've got to convince yourself that you either have the talent or you're with a band that is on the edge of doing something, or there's just so much that you see going on around you. I mean, you know, it just depends on what your goal is, but there's got to be concrete belief that you can attain your goal for you to actually work toward it and make it happen. But the last thing, as I explained with my band situation when I was with Hawk, is sacrifice. A lot of times when you look at the goal and you see what it takes to attain the goal, and maybe even it's a little on down the line while you're working toward that goal, that it occurs to you, I can't make that sacrifice. It's like, I want to be in the best band in my hometown, and I want people to know who I am as I'm walking down the street, or they see me shopping for groceries, or any of the other things I do in my hometown. I want to be recognized for that. However, I've only got a couple of nights that I can rehearse a month. Well, not only are you not going to reach that goal, but you're not going to convince yourself that you can even move toward it. So keep that in mind when you're making these plans. Those 4 things: goals, the plan to reach the goals, the belief, the solid belief that you want to be the greatest guitar player in the world. You got to be able to convince yourself that you're capable of that. And it's not just, I believe I can do it. Not only do I believe I can do it, but this person has told me. And I've played out and people have said I'm the best guitarist that they've ever heard. Stuff like that. There's got to be hardcore evidence to support your belief. And then after and along with all of that, even if you're going to take guitar lessons from me, you must make the sacrifice of daily practice and showing up for your guitar lesson at least every other week, or we're not going to reach your goals anytime soon and maybe ever. But if we follow a path that we can make the effort and the sacrifice to reach the end of that path, we can reach our dreams. I hope you found this interesting. And you know what? Even more than that, you're one of probably only a handful of people that have found this interesting enough to make it all the way to the end of this video. So regardless of what you think of yourself, if you've actually paid attention to all of this, absorbed it, and going, I might be able to do something with that, I can't tell you how special you are. And I don't need to. Thank you for watching my video, and I will see you on the next one.